Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. I don't know what I've been told. This podcast is good as gold. We lead the way, we lead the pack. This is Backlook Cinema Talking Smack. I'm your host, Zoe. That's Z-O or Z-O for those outside of the U.S. It's the 117th episode. Thank you for downloading and streaming. We really appreciate it. You watch movies that I love when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and talk about my favorite parts, and I give you my son Zach's impressions, except for this movie. It's a little too touchy-feely for Zach, so he skipped out on this particular movie. And if you like what you're about to hear, please tell your family, tell your friends, tell all your neighbors, tell your favorite naval aviator about our humble little show, Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Now, I have a special treat for you. As promised, I have another special guest, and she is a force to be reckoned with, a purveyor of not one but two podcasts, and you can't go wrong with either of them because both of them are charming and delightful. Ladies, gentlemen, and people of all genders, may I introduce to you one half of Give Me a Bake and Two Chicks Talkin Flicks podcasts. I give you the sensational Sarah.
What an introduction!
Thank you. I finally got it right. I've been messing up on the introductions lately. I mean, people generally like their introductions, but I'll mess up for myself because I mean to push the applause button, I forget to push the applause button, so I have to add the effect afterwards. And so when you don't press the applause button, people don't get the full effect of my welcome. I want people to feel welcome.
Right? Yeah. Yesterday we were recording, and I have a Rodecaster, and so it has pre-programmed buttons, and I always hit the wrong one, but at this particular time, I hit a button and it didn't do anything, and we talked about it, and then I realized we couldn't hear it because the volume was down, so I put it up, and I hit a different button, and it was the wah, 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 and it was perfect. So
Right.
Yeah, and then I did an applause later, and I hit the right one, and it was great, so
right.
I feel you.
Yeah, when I talked to you earlier about being able to allow my guests to hear certain things, that's because I got a Zoom 4. I think it's called a Zoom P4. I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's a Zoom thing, and it's more like a portable version of the recording device. So you can record on it, and you can program up to 4, count them 4 pre-recorded sounds to play during your recording or whatever. So the neat thing about it is that it's portable, but and I thought I'd be doing a lot of portable type of podcasting, but haven't really been able to do that yet because I'm chicken. So being chicken is a huge factor in being able to record people in public. See, my big idea was I would go to a movie, and then as people are exiting the theater or that we all watch the same movie, I would ask them their opinions about the movie. And I've only been able to do it a couple of times. This is before I got the P4. I've only been able to do it a couple of times. I would record on my phone, but I'm always super nervous, during the interview with certain people. And then even just approaching people, would you like to do an interview for my podcast? It's it doesn't even sound right.
Yeah, same. I had the exact same idea.
Right.
And I actually emailed a local theater, and I never heard back from them.
Right.
Because we wanted to do the same thing.
Right.
Mine, it's not it's portable. It's not as small as yours. It's we'd have to plug in. But I even looked up getting extra covers for my microphone so I can Lysol them in between and change them out.
Right.
And yeah, I want to do the exact same thing. So you're not alone.
Right. So it's just basically getting over the chicken factor, and and we're both of us, I believe, are slowly working through it. We'll get there someday. It's just approaching one person, one stranger at a time. They're not going to bite us. They're not going to kill us. What are we afraid of?
Yeah. You should have your son do it. have
No, he
him
hates it.
approach people.
He
Oh,
hates
he
it.
hates
He
it.
hates it. It's not like he's afraid. He's not afraid. He just hates that I do it. It's like
Mm.
when you're he's 26 years old, but I still manage to embarrass him. So
Oh, yeah.
so let me ask you a few questions. My questions are basic. They're not
Okay.
sophisticated. My audience knows this. They know that I'm not Barbara Waters. I'm not going to hit. I don't have any hard hitting questions. Just the obvious ones. I'm trying to keep it chill. So the first question I'll ask. My first obvious question is: how long have you and April known each other?
Oh, since probably like 2013, somewhere in there.
Okay,
I was actually her boss at the company we both worked for, and we've actually worked together at different places. This is our third time, and so now she works where I work, and yeah, we started off with trivia, and that was our thing. We would go to trivia days or trivia nights at restaurants, but the pandemic kind of put a kibosh on it.
right.
And so we started doing our podcast in 2020. And so we just
Okay,
have fun.
awesome. That's interesting that you should mention trivia. I just got a invitation to join this other podcast on a they're doing like a trivia tournament. I guess they're
Ooh.
yeah, I guess they're and I'm not great at trivia. I forgot the name of the podcast, but I could send you their at on Twitter, and then maybe
Mhm.
you can contact them if you're interested in participating. But it was one of the few times somebody reached out to me out in the blue to do a project like this. I was like, sure,
Mhm.
let's try it out. Let's see what happens. I'm super I'm super bad at trivia. So it's like if
Well,
it's outside of Star Wars and Star Trek, or perhaps even comics, I'm uh, after that it's a little loosey.
is it movie trivia?
Well, they're a movie podcast, so I
Oh,
imagine there's
okay.
going to be a lot of movie trivia.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the funny thing is that trivia is one of the things on this podcast. It's like I look up trivia, I have a lot of trivia, but I don't retain that knowledge. As soon as I regurgitate it, it's gone, right?
Mhm.
I may retain like one or two things from a particular movie, but after that, it's I've forgotten most of it. So well that's good. It's good to have she's not a lifelong friend, but she's a very important friend, and we've known each other
Mhm,
for a while, so that's pretty good. It's good to have these long term relationships. As a matter of fact, it's like you found her later in your life, and so
mhm.
you've disproven the notion of having no new friend. You found a new friend.
I did.
So
I did it.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it took a bit, but I did, yes.
Right. So, are there movies that she loves that you absolutely won't watch, or vice versa?
Yes, she really is into more of okay, so we had April's month of movies, that's what
Right.
we just did, and yesterday was the last one. I know it's past April. There was some circumstances, but she wanted to do the Royal Tenenbaums, yesterday, uh, Idiocracy, and, um, Ready Player One. Those would not be the movies I would choose. I would choose, like, comedies that aren't, like, whimsical, I guess I would say. Like, she likes more out there stuff.
Right.
So things about, like, other worlds or parallel universes or aliens, things
Right.
like that. She has wanted to do Lord of the Rings, and I was like, "I just can't. I can't do Lord of the Rings."
Right. So your tastes are more grounded than hers is.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
what about movies that I mean, so but you have watched some of these. You've watched like the World Tenenbaums, you watched
Mhm.
yeah, so it's not like you won't watch them. It's
Yeah.
you're just hesitant to watch something like that. But something like
So
Lord of the Rings, you just won't watch.
right,
Okay,
like
right.
but there's movies that I wanna watch that she doesn't want to, so we haven't watched them yet. Good example, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Right. Oh my goodness, that's a classic.
I know, and I don't understand. why she won't watch it. So, it's weird.
Man, it's that when I hadn't seen like I'm a real huge fan of Robin Williams. I liked him in
Mhm.
like my favorite thing ever was when he's in Mork and Mindy. And then
Mm.
there was some of the like his comedy his stand-up comedy was it just has me rolling on the floor. But I hadn't watched most of his movies, so it's that one and maybe one other movie, Robin Williams movie that I watched. And I need to get on watching some more of his movies because most of them are classics. Like
Oh,
Good
yeah.
Morning Vietnam. I really want to watch that one.
That's a good one. One movie that I wanted to have us watch, because we both worked, at a store that had a photo lab, and I wanted to do 1-hour photo with Robin Williams. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't seen that, but I get the gist that he's not a friendly person in that one.
Well, he has watched this family grow, like, from when they were together, had a kid, the kid is growing up, and he has, like, created this weird bond through their photos after all these years, and he gets a little clingy and stalkerish,
Right,
and
right.
I thought it'd be a fun movie since we both worked in a photo lab, but we haven't watched it yet, so
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that she could. It's something that she could watch. Is I'm sure that you've watched movies that she was resistant to. That when she watched it, she was like glad that she watched it, or she acknowledged it was a good movie.
yeah, like, I will suffer through crappy movies. If she doesn't like a movie, she'll just start reading her phone, and I can kinda always tell when she's not into it.
She's checking out.
Yeah, and then it makes it really hard to discuss a movie because she's
Right,
just
right,
like,
right,
"No,
right, right,
I'm not into it."
right.
So,
So I imagine she's tried to get you to watch Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
she loves Star Trek or Star Wars, sorry. She's a huge Star Wars fan,
Right, right,
and, we haven't watched them yet.
right.
Um, I'm I've been putting it off mainly because I won't get her to shut up.
Right, right, right.
Like, we're gonna have to get someone who is a huge Star Wars fan like her, so they can just talk, and maybe I'll go, like, make a sandwich or something.
Well, me too. I am a Star Wars fan, and I can do that. I can do that
Okay.
work.
Well, there's a lot of them,
Right,
so
right, right, right. You have your pick of the litter on Star Wars. So my last question, well, maybe not my final question, but the one that I wrote down. So what was first? Was it the baking pod or was it the movie pod?
so it's the movie pod was first,
Right.
and the baking, we don't do it anymore. Um, we really enjoy it, and actually, I think we like it more than the movie podcast. Um, but there's 2 issues. One, she doesn't want to bake hard stuff, and so it makes it difficult,
Right.
uh, and she doesn't want dough and stuff under her fingernails. So
It's kind of the thing. It's almost
yeah.
well, actually, you can get around that. You can wear the gloves if she's not allergic to the plastic gloves. The
Yeah, she was like, "I need to get some baking gloves," and I
right,
was like,
right,
"There's
right.
baking gloves?"
I
And
forget it's
so
polyurethane gloves or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. Medical gloves. Yeah, she and that's a way of getting around it. You know that's what the kitchen workers use at school.
Mhm. Yeah, and so, just the logistics, like, normally what we would do is she would make something and then we would make it so
Right,
she could kinda see the difference,
right,
but we don't always have time to do that, and so we would have to make it before, but then she couldn't see how we did it to try
right.
and teach her. Also, she doesn't care to bake, like, she doesn't want to, so she'll do it here, but it's not
Right,
like she's gonna go home and practice.
right, right.
So, there's no real incentive for her. It's just fun for us to talk about the failure of it,
Right, right, right. So
and
it's mainly like bread and cakes and pies and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, and, we were doing it mostly so we could bake something and then just complain about our week or talk about funny things that happen, just so our listeners from our other podcasts could get to learn to get to know us a little bit
Right,
more.
right, right,
Though we do air out a lot of stuff on the other podcast too, so really
right.
there's no need. But that's why I've been uploading those episodes on our main podcast just to
Right.
kind of have people hear them. So
Or perhaps, instead of having her like bake something on your own, you just do a show where you're baking something together, and you can kind of fold that into the movie podcast, like you're making
yeah,
snacks for the movie podcast or something like that.
yeah, we've thought of that too. I know we want to do ratatouille, and there's a French like brunch bistro place here, so we were gonna go there and have brunch and then watch the movie. But we could also like make French toast while we
Right, right, right,
do the movie. So
right. Yeah, I dabble in a little bit of baking myself. What happens with me is that I get caught up in like the internet stuff that I see
uh-huh,
sometimes. So there's a couple of guys I follow. There's Joshua Wiseman was one of them. He's on mainly on YouTube,
uh-huh.
and he does a lot of things. Like a lot of it is it's like he takes something complicated and makes it look a little bit easy, and that's what I like about him, and
Okay.
explains certain terms or whatnot. So one of the things that I made that he did on this show was what's it called? It's that French ham and cheese sandwich, and I can't remember what the name of it is.
Oh, okay.
Something about a Mr. Crunchy. He makes a Mr. Crunchy. And
That sounds good.
I
Well, if you have any fails, you can always come on our podcast and talk about them.
Yeah, yeah, I have had some failures. There was one that I was trying to make for the longest time, and it couldn't come out right. So it's these French canoe things. I can't remember the name of them, but they're basically little cookies that are shaped like canoes,
Huh.
and um they're very particular. If you like go to France, or maybe some bakery over here makes them, they're very expensive.
Mhm.
And then when I went to make these, I had actually ordered some this orange oil or orange. It's the orange thing, like orange liquor. I forgot what it's called, but is the ingredient that I couldn't find any place else. I ordered off of Amazon. It
Mhm.
tastes. It has a very strong orange taste, and that's the main ingredient for this cookie. And every time I baked it, it would either come out too crunchy or not done. But I
Oh, no.
but I finally figured it out. I baked them this one time, and I finally figured it out. And I banked a bunch of them, and they were soft and chewy, and they were delicious, and they had that sweet orange flavor. And I conquered it. But it's like the process of trying to figure it out, because I wasn't going to let it go. I was going to keep baking this. I was going to keep wasting dough until I found out what I was doing wrong and how to make it. And so
Mhm.
I that's one of them. And then there's like trying to make fried chicken. I know that's not baking, but that's a series of disasters.
Yeah, we both have had our failures. So, like, even though we make fun of April's lousy attempts at baking and cooking, I've had my own. We actually did a Thanksgiving episode that we never aired, and it was all about how I tried to make Thanksgiving dinner for myself. It was awful. My family that was in 2002, and my
Right,
family still makes fun of me for it, and none of them were here. That's why I
right.
was making it for myself because I was by myself, and, they all went to Alabama for Thanksgiving, but I couldn't because of my job, and so I was 18 and never really cooked, like, a full meal,
Right, right.
and it was awful. It was
Well, I found that for me, most of it is like the most challenging thing was turkey, and I never made turkey before, but I made turkey for the very first time a few years ago, and it came out perfectly. But I didn't do most of the work, so most of the turkey was already like pre-brined. So when you
mm,
bought it, it was already in the brining solution in a bag. So all I really had to do was take turkey out and put it in the pan to bake it.
mm,
But then I saw a recipe for certain types of turkey. So there was one recipe where you took onions and a bunch of other ingredients, and you stuffed it into the turkey,
mhm.
and you baked it that way, and it was juicy and delicious. it's one of those things where I didn't think I could do it, and I did it. And then there are other things like baking is like certain things like cookies can be a little bit challenging because
Hmm.
they're a little finicky. But like bread or like I baked some sweet potato something. It was a sweet potato pie, but it was just sweet potatoes, like a sweet potato souffle. No, it's not. Is it
Hmm.
called? No, casserole. There we go. I'm losing words and I'm finding them again. So it was a sweet potato casserole, and I did that. I think I did that last year. So, um, and then most of the stuff is like I'm not going to strain myself, right? So if it's vegetables, then I'm just going to steam them, or I'm just going to boil them. I guess I'm not. I'm not gonna strain myself over this Thanksgiving dinner. It's just food after all.
Yeah. The worst part was the mashed potatoes. It was bad.
See, you tried to do it from scratch, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yes.
somehow the like it wasn't a turkey, it was like a game hen or whatever.
Right.
That turned out fine. It wasn't great, but it was, cooked and stuff. But the potatoes, I didn't mash. No one told me I had to keep mashing till all the water was gone.
Ah.
And I was just like, these are really watery. When you're baking, if you have too much liquid, what do? You add flour. So I was like, let's add some flour. Don't do that.
Right,
Um,
right, right,
it's gross.
right.
It makes it disgusting,
Ah,
and it was nasty.
w-
I
my my mashed potatoes come out of a box, so.
mhm. You would think that that would have been what they said, "Hey, Sarah,
Right, right, right.
just get the box or the bag."
Right, right,
But no, they're like, "She could do this.
right. Nobody
She's
knows
never
the
made them
difference.
before.
Right.
Let's not leave her a recipe. She'll figure it out."
So if you're curious about certain creators like on TikTok or whatever, there's one called at the Corey B that I just discovered. He just dropped into my feed, and you kind of have to watch out because he is so popular that other people will copy him, and you think
Mhm.
that you're watching his video, but it's actually somebody had what do you call that when somebody had stitched his video,
Stitched, oh, yeah.
but you don't know that it's a stitch, so it looks like his video, but it's not.
Mhm.
But that's how popular he is. And I just made something for the first time. I made something that he was doing. So what his stick is that he stitches somebody else's video and
Mhm.
they're making something. It's like a food hack. And so he tries the
Mhm.
food hack and it's like and it almost always turns out to be delicious. Like it's something that he'd never thought about trying and he tries it and it's awesome. And he has these funny little rhymes as he's
Yes.
doing
Yeah,
so you
I've
heard of
seen
him.
him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that
Mhm.
guy. So he made this potato. Well, basically he just took like a pan, he mixed in some butter and some
Mhm.
seasoning
Mhm.
and some cheese. But he doesn't tell you how much of the ingredients that he did. So
Yeah.
I did the same thing, but I guess when I did it, I didn't put enough cheese. And he
Oh.
put his I mean it tasted all right, but it didn't look like his looked, right?
Mhm.
But it was fine. It was it's something that I can try again, add more parmesan cheese and then maybe bake it a little bit longer because
Mhm.
the potatoes a little bit too al dente, if you know what I mean.
Ooh, yeah.
And then there's B. Dylan Hollis, and he's this dude. He's baking recipes from like the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, that sort of thing. So weird stuff like no
Mhm.
bake peanut butter cookies and stuff like that. He made a dump cake. That was
Mhm.
a video that I just recently saw. So in a dump cake, he took 2 cans of canned peaches and he dumped them
Mhm.
into like a baking bowl and
Mhm.
like one of the cans was strained and with no peach juice, but the other can he used some of the peach juice and then he
Mhm.
dumped a cake mix. Like he didn't
Yeah.
he didn't do like he didn't make his own cake mix. He dumped cake mix in it
Mhm.
and then I think he put eggs and I think he stirred it up a little bit and then he put it in the oven and brought it out and it was delicious. But then
That's weird.
right, and then there are other things that he makes is like it's like he's baking a cake, but the ingredients call for mayonnaise, and it's like there's no way this is going to taste good, and it
Yeah.
tastes and it's excellent, and then
Yeah.
sometimes he'll make something and it's disgusting. So yeah, He's very entertaining.
Yeah, I've seen his. I've made a ton of dump cakes, but usually the reason why I said it was weird is because normally you cut up butter and you put butter on top
I think he
and
may
you
have.
put it in the oven.
He probably
And,
did
and
that.
you don't mix it, you just dump
Right,
everything.
right. Um, he probably did that, but it's funny the stuff that he does. But you know what? This is a movie podcast. Maybe we should talk a little bit about movies.
Ah, sure.
So I'm going to play this little trailer for Two Chicks Talkin Flicks, and then after that trailer, we are going to talk about An Officer and a Gentleman.
This is Two Chicks Talkin Flicks, where we review movies. We try to dig deeper and go more in depth.
And profound for me.
Yeah, for me, I'm just like, what? We even bring up relevant topics.
I remember from Punky Brewster that you don't go inside the fridge.
And we're here to have those tough conversations. Mm-hmm.
And she was wearing a white dress, which
was yellow.
Huh?
It was yellow. So if this sounds like the podcast for you, please enjoy. New episodes every Tuesday.
And we're back. Hey, I remember Punky Brewster. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that her real name is Amanda, and she hated it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's.
Do you know that episode we were talking about though?
No, I don't remember that episode.
Yeah, it's when they're playing hide and go seek, and one of the kids goes into the refrigerator, and then someone comes to I guess they can't find him, or someone comes to pick up the refrigerator. I don't remember, but it was scary, and that's why you don't hide in them.
Right. It's this thing that happened in those times, in the before times, where they would always warn you not to hide in the refrigerator or not to play around. But they were always talking about refrigerators that were out in the yard or something like that.
Yeah, that's what this was.
Right,
it was that kind of situation, and I don't remember why. But yeah, this little boy, and then they couldn't find him, and he almost died.
Yeah. It was a very special episode of Punky Brewster. All right.
That's what you can expect from our podcast.
Right.
All the Punky Brewster facts.
So, as I mentioned earlier, the movie that we watched was An Officer and a Gentleman. So, Sarah, please tell us more about this movie.
Okay. So Zach Mayo feels like he's reached a dead end in his life. Seemingly on a whim, he joins the Navy officers cadet school, and as he imagines that his life of a Navy aviator will bring him fulfillment in his life, the school offers an intense mental and physical challenges, but his greatest challenge is the affection he has for the local woman named Paula. Can he be open with her? Will he allow himself to be vulnerable in her presence? The walls that Zach has built up around him test them both.
That is pretty accurate, I believe. Not written by AI. I'm still struggling with my brain to write copy for the podcast. This movie was released August 13th, 1982, produced by Lorimar Film Entertainment and Paramount Pictures. It grossed over $129 million in the U.S. and Canada on a $7.7 million budget. It had it had great reviews. I don't know why. Oh, I know why. I forgot to change it. It had great reviews. And here's what's funny. That's profit. That's so much profit. That is a Hollywood mogul's dream, to invest as little as money as possible and have that much profit. It's an incredible return on investment. And people like this movie, and it was a pretty. It's one of the most impactful movies that I watched when I was growing up. So we're going to talk about who was starring in the movie. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, so we have Richard Gere. He plays Zach Mayo. He was in Chicago, Pretty Women, The Jackal, amongst many others.
Yes, a prolific actor. This movie came out when he was on the rise. He was shooting up into the stratosphere, and those are some of his most memorable movies. Up next is Deborah Winger. She played Paula Pokrivka. I believe I said that right. She's been in Terms of Endearment, Rachel Getting Married, and Urban Cowboy.
And then we have David Keith. He is Sid Worley. He was in Behind Enemy Lines, The Indian in the Cupboard, which I love, and Daredevil.
Yes, and interesting about David Keith is like I've seen this actor in other movies before. He has a very peculiar face. It's like it's so
Punchable.
yeah, not punchable. It's just so uniquely shaped. It's like he's got a uniquely shaped face, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't want to say it's punchable. That would be too cruel. And I looked at his name for the first time. I didn't know what his name was until I did this rewatch in a movie, and I was like, oh, David Keith. So like Keith David, I guess the opposite in every way of Keith David. So up next is Robert Loggia. He played Byron Mayo. Ooh, I'm messing everything up. Byron Mayo. He's been in Big, Independence Day, Scarface, and many other movies. Kind of a character actor. He's been in a lot of TV movies, a lot of TV shows, and a lot of movies. Just whenever he's in a movie, he brings gravity to the situation.
Lisa, is it Blount?
Or Blount?
Blount.
She
played.
That sounds great.
Oh.
I like that.
She played Lynette Palmeroy, and she was in The Prince of Darkness, Crystal, and Blind Flurry.
Yeah. I don't know much about her, but she's done some movies, some TV shows.
She looked familiar.
You probably if you've seen Prince of Darkness, you might recognize her from that.
Nope, never seen it.
Oh, okay. I think that's probably one of her. Or she's done a lot of television, so you may have seen her on television. But I think Prince of Darkness is probably, besides this movie and Officer and a Gentleman, this is probably her. Prince of Darkness probably her highest profile role. Up next is Lisa Eilbacher. She played Casey Seeger. She's been in Beverly Hills Cop, 10 to Midnight, and Leviathan. She's got some higher profile movies. I didn't realize, I didn't recognize her at all, but she plays the second lead to Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. That's the same girl. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Then we have Louis Gossett Jr., and he is Sergeant Emil Foley.
Yep.
He was in Daddy's Little Girl, Diggstown, and The Punisher.
Yes. And I want to specify that's the 1989 Punisher, not the TV series Punisher or any of the Punishers that came out in theaters lately. This is the old school Punisher that came out a long time ago with Dolph Lundgren. So I'm always pleased to see Louis Gossett Jr. He's always a surprise. He's like another actor that brings gravity to the situation. And this, I think this is probably, like a lot of actors, I couldn't point to their best roles, like their where they did their best work. But this movie, this is his best work. He is so good in this movie. Up next is Tony Plana. He played Emiliano Della Sera. He's been in Roman J. Israel Esquire, Three Amigos, and A Snowy Day in Oakland. So he was the really short recruit. It was hard to miss him.
Yeah. And then we have Harold Sylvester. He played Perryman. He was in Inner Space and Uncommon Valor.
Right. Next is David Caruso. He played Topper Daniels. He's been in First Blood and Proof of Life. And I did not know these things. Like, I only know him from the cop shows that he was on television.
Yes. Oh, I was going to say, I don't like him on CSI Miami. He was always the worst.
Yeah. I guess that's his thing, to be the worst on that show. I don't know. I had to watch that. I just remember from a little bit from NYPD Blue. Then he wanted to get back into the movies, and it didn't work out as well as he had hoped. So he went back into television. But what was interesting to me is that when they said he was in Rambo, I just saw Rambo a few months ago, and in this movie he's so young that he's barely recognizable. Yeah. I want to note that these are supposed to be recruits into the officer candidate school, And usually the recruits are between like 21 to 25. They are fresh out of college, or
Yeah.
they're probably in college.
Mm-hmm.
So they should look younger, but most of the people most of the recruits in this movie do not look as young as they should look.
No.
But he was one of the ones that he looks like a baby in this movie. I was like, oh my God, is that David Caruso?
Yeah. Yeah, he looks really young. Nowadays he again also has a very punchable looking face.
Right.
Just
I would agree
kind
with
of just
that.
want to deck him.
Right. Also, so I looked up when he was in First Blood. I didn't look up his proof of life picture. And in First Blood, he looks a little bit older, but still unrecognizable because he's so young.
And then we have Victor French. He played Joe Poto. Oh, it's the same last name. Porcarifa.
It's good enough for me. Nobody will remember.
He was in Rio Lobo and Highway to Heaven.
Yes. Have you ever seen that one?
The TV show
Yeah.
Highway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was.
I've also seen Rio Lobo.
Right. Oh, I haven't seen that one. Yeah, he's the dude with Landon, Michael Landon. He was his sidekick, and he was also Michael Landon's sidekick in Little House on the Prairie. So he's been around. Yeah, he's that dude. And last we have Grace Zabriskie. She played Esther Pokrivka, and she's been in Armageddon and The Grunge. So, is that the one that played his wife? I think that's the one that played his wife.
I recognized her. I didn't know she was in Armageddon, but I did recognize her.
Right. I can't place her in Armageddon. She's probably somebody's wife in that movie. I imagine that it's like you're paying attention to all the action that's going on, that you're not looking too much at the smaller roles.
Is she the president's wife?
I have no idea. Was the president even in that movie? I remember the Joint Chiefs of Staff being in the movie. I don't even remember. She may have been one of the Joint Chiefs. I don't even know. Yeah.
Or is she the mom of Gold or I don't know. I can't think of it.
You talk about Liv Tyler's character?
No,
No,
I don't know.
She was Bruce Willis's daughter.
Yeah, no. I know that. I was thinking of Independence Day, and I was thinking of Steve Goldblum because I know he calls his mom.
Right.
I thought maybe she's the mom, but
I don't think his mom made an appearance in that movie. It was just he was just talking to her on the phone.
Yeah, and then I realized that it was a different movie.
Yeah, it was way different. So much better. I actually, I want to amend that. They're both about the same. I love them equally. They're both my children.
Yeah.
So
I mean, very similar kind of things happen.
Right. It's got the same amount of realism in both of those movies.
That's true.
Tell us about the director.
So it was directed by Taylor Hackford. He did Ray, Dolores Claiborne, The Devil's Advocate, and Against All Odds.
Oh man, just doing good movies. He's just directing a bevy of great movies. Also written by Douglas Day Stewart. He wrote The Blue Lagoon, The Scarlet Letter from 1995, and Listen to Me. So I think I've seen bits and pieces of the Blue Lagoon, and that's about it.
I've seen it several times actually.
The Blue Lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I watched it because it was on HBO, and there was nudity. So that's, or at least I was told there was nudity. I don't know if I actually ever saw it, because as I said, I only seen bits and pieces of it. Tell us about the music.
So the music was done by Jack Nietzsche.
I think that's Nietzsche.
Nietzsche. I thought it was Nietzsche.
Yeah.
But then I was like
that famous guy who
okay, yeah, there is a Nietzsche as well. Okay,
right.
He did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Next of Kin, The Seventh Sign, 1988, Stand By Me, and the song Up Where We Belong, written by Will Jennings, Jack Nietzsche, Buffy Santee Marie, performed by Joe Crocker and Jennifer Warnes.
Yes. Of course, I had to include the titular song. Or it's not the titular song, but it's still a very important song. It's weaved into the soundtrack. So as you listen to the movie, you're constantly hearing the rhythms and chords of Up Where We Belong. And then they actually sing it in the end credits of the movie. And it's like, I remember this having such a beautiful song to hear on the radio. I didn't realize it was a Joe Crocker song. So And the other Joe Cocker song that's affiliated with the TV show is the Wonder Years that I love. It's like
much better song.
Right. Rushing home to watch the Wonder Years, getting there to hear the opening credits because even though it's like I never heard the whole song. I only heard that part that they played in the opening credits of the Wonder Years. Only later on in life did I, when streaming was available, was I able to partake of the entire song and not just that little piece of it. But yeah, a wonderful song.
You never heard the Beatles version of it?
No, if I did, I don't remember hearing the Beatles version of it.
Oh, wow.
I didn't. It's like a lot of the songs I heard that were Beatles songs were the ones that were remade that I didn't realize. Like there was that Michael Jackson one that he did that like Come Together. I didn't realize that was a Beatles song, right? So there was Yesterday that it was actually not John Lennon, it's the other one.
Paul McCartney?
No, not Paul McCartney.
Ringo Starr?
Yeah. Oh, I guess it was
George Harrison?
I guess it was John. No, was John Lennon part of the Beatles?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was John Lennon. So John Lennon's song Yesterday, I first heard that sung by Boyz II Men. So yeah, and as you could tell, me going through the Beatles and not knowing who did what, my Beatles knowledge is lacking.
Well, come on, man. They're a really popular group.
Yeah, I know, right?
They hail from England.
As a matter of fact, one of the groups that I liked, it was not really a group, it's a TV show. The Monkees were based off of them.
You know the Monkees, but not the Beatles.
Well, I know the Beatles. I just not as familiar with a lot of their work as like a Beatles fan, right? So, like if I heard, what's the one? The one that's something about being happy. So if I heard that song, I know that's a Beatles song because I've heard it. It's enough. But a lot of the other songs I just don't know that well. So there's a character on Star Trek, the original series, whose look was based on the Beatles because it was really popular at the time. That bowl haircut that Pavel Chekhov had. So he specifically had that look, I'm guessing, to draw on the younger crowd for that era.
Yeah, and I do like that they finally reward us with actually playing Up Where We Belong because they tease it the entire time.
Right.
And I've been singing it all day.
Absolutely. So that's it for the opening credits. If you're enjoying the show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our website, backclickcinema.com/shop. Now, I have a treat for you. I haven't done this in a long time. I'm going to play one of my faux ads that I used to play on the earlier days of the show. Now, I want to do this because my guests never really got a chance to listen to the faux ads, really never got their reaction. So I'm playing this fake advertisement. I'm letting you know that it's fake because people used to think that they were real. It's like, no, it's a joke. So I'm going to play it. Now, you won't catch the references, I don't think. Or maybe you will because it's a movie reference. So let me just go ahead and play this. Hold on, let me see.
I'm
this
pretty
one,
astute.
this one. Let's play this one and see if you can catch the reference.
It's big. It's juicy. It's fresh. It's the Big Kahuna Burger. You want this in your life. You need this in your life. It's the most meat you'll ever need in a burger. It's the Big Kahuna. And if that's not enough, try the Big Kahuna meal with your choice of fries or chips, plus pineapples, one aside, and your favorite soft drink. Stop by the Big Kahuna restaurant today and treat yourself to all the meat you'll ever need.
Music and sound effects provided by Zapsplat.com.
And there it is. The Big Kahuna Burger. What'd you think?
That is interesting. That is.
So did you get the reference?
No.
So the Big Kahuna version, the Big Kahuna Burger is in reference to the Quentin Tarantino family of films. So in his films, he features the Big Kahuna Burger, and that's one of the connecting tissues that connects a lot of his films together.
Yeah, because I was thinking of Pulp Fiction, and I was like, no, that's the Royal. That's an actual burger.
Well, they talk about the what do they call it? Because they're talking about a quarter pounder with cheese, and then that's when I can't remember his name now. The dude, the white dude, what's his name?
John Travolta.
John Travolta, thank you. I wasn't even trying to think of his character's name. I was just trying to think of his name, the guy who played the character. So John Travolta was like, well, they don't know what the fuck a quarter pound is. It's France. They on the metric system. They call it Le Grand Royale, right?
Yeah.
But the burger that they eat in like one of the restaurants, I'm 90% sure it's called the Big Kahuna version. The Big Kahuna
is it
burger.
the restaurant where they do the dancing?
Right. And then there are other places that they go that other movies where somebody's eating the Big Kahuna Burger. So
yeah, we're a movie review podcast, but I have not seen that movie. There's actually a ton of movies like that I haven't seen. I've seen parts of it, so I know what happens.
Right.
But I've not seen the full movie.
Yeah, well, I encourage you to watch it. I no shame from my part, because there are a bunch of movies that I should have seen that I had not seen. It's just that these are the classic movies. I know exactly what you're going through. The classic movies that I should have seen that just never got around to. So
yeah,
for you, it's Pulp Fiction, and for me, it's a bunch of other movies. So let's get started with the favorite parts. Why don't you let the audience know, Sarah, what's one of your favorite parts?
So my mom, she's seen this movie quite a bit, and we are from Texas. So now, just to say this, it's not something you should say nowadays. This movie has not aged well, but the only two things come from Oklahoma is steers and queers. And he says, I don't see any horns. I love that part because she still referenced that here and there. And it's just a funny thing that she'll say every once in a while. And then also when he says mayonnaise, I just love how he says his name.
Right. Or just basically messing up his name. And while it's definitely not politically correct, some of the speech used in this movie, but having been through basic training, that is exactly how drill sergeants talk. Drill sergeants or drill instructors. Actually, a lot of times it's much worse. And what's funny is, like, at the time I was going through basic training, they weren't supposed to curse the drill sergeants, but they cursed all the time.
What branch were you in?
I was in the Army. So in the Army, in the Army, they're referred to as drill sergeants, and the Marine Corps, they're called drill instructors. And what's interesting about this is that since the Marines are actually a division of the Navy, they were going to a naval aviation school, but they were being trained by a Marine drill instructor. It's not a difference that I would have caught, because I seen this movie before I went into the Army, so it's not a distinction I would have made. And so it's impressive how accurate they were. They were accurate with the uniforms, with basically his whole, like, Louis Gossett Jr.'s whole behavior and how he carried himself is super accurate. Like, I wouldn't have caught it back then, but like after having had that experience, you see how I can see now how super accurate it was. So it's even more impactful now than than before I joined the military.
Like, I wonder if Denzel, like, not imitates him, but like saw this and used it as a guide for his acting, because I feel like they're very similar, and I could totally see if they like rebooted this that he would do well doing that part, because I feel like their acting style is very similar. Because like take him as the coach from the football movie.
Yeah. Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans, yeah. Like it's very similar.
Right.
So
Yeah, he's played a soldier in a training type situation before, but the movie that he was in wasn't particularly good, that particular movie. But there's also when he was in Glory, but in Glory he was a trainee, not a trainor, so it couldn't really compare it. But yeah, he would do it, but I don't know if he would fit in a reboot, because he's a little old for that part. But he is coming into The Equalizer 3, so I'm eager to see him in that.
yeah,
that is a reboot as well. Did you ever watch the Equalizer TV show?
No, with Queen Latifah?
No, that's a reboot. That's
yes, yeah.
That's the third.
I've
reboot.
seen that one. I've not seen the original.
Yeah, so the original was, I think there was it's a white dude. That's the only thing I remember, because I only seen like a couple of episodes of the original Equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I know that it's a reboot of a TV show. And so the movie is a reboot of the TV show, and Queen Latifah is a reboot, is the newest reboot of the TV show.
Yeah.
So it's not my favorite part. It's just the part I realized that I don't remember. Like I was trying to look for it in the trivia section, but I didn't see a reference to it. But I feel like I seen a totally different beginning of this movie.
Yes.
Oh, so it happened to you too?
Yeah. There's a couple parts that I never saw before, or I don't remember seeing. I've only seen this movie, I'm sure, if it's been on TV, watching it. So a lot of the stuff was probably cut out, but I do not remember him waking up and his dad's in bed with these two women.
Was it two women? I thought it was just one.
Nope, there was two. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't remember that part. As a matter of fact, the way I remember the movie started was that he was a home alone in his apartment. He watched a Navy recruitment commercial, and then he left his apartment, and that's all I remember. I don't remember the thing with him being young in Vietnam. Like I don't remember his childhood.
Yeah.
I don't remember his dad coming in and not wanting to take responsibility for him, but taking responsibility nonetheless. I don't remember that his mother unaliving himself. I don't remember any of that. So that feels all new to me. So I must have watched the edited version on television, because none of these parts are familiar that I saw in the beginning.
I also thought that Sid died a different way.
Oh, I remember how Sid died. That was
For
was
some
shocking.
reason, I thought he like went back into the simulator thing over and over, and then he like died in the simulator. You know, when he can't breathe.
Right. Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that's what happened.
Right.
And so, but maybe because I kind of feel like this movie was the before for Top Gun. Like, I feel like they took the feel of this movie and then was like, oh, it's about naval pilots. Let's make Top Gun about after they go to basic training.
Right.
And so maybe I'm just getting those two movies like intertwined, but I thought that's how he died. Yeah. So it was a little like I knew he died, but it was shocking seeing him hanging.
It was definitely shocking. I definitely remember that part. I feel like I don't remember when Top Gun came out, but doing these types of movies were very popular, especially back in those times. And I feel like this movie leans more heavily on the romance than Top Gun did. Top Gun really focused on the action, fighting an unnamed enemy, and this one, like Top Gun, is after their actual training, after basic training. So these are already the top naval aviators. So they're just getting extra training since they're already good. They're giving them
Yeah.
extra training to make them even better than they already are. Like it's like going to like AP physics or something.
Mhm.
So that's what they're doing. But these are like these guys haven't even seen a plane and an
Yeah.
officer and a gentleman. They're learning about avionics, but they're all college graduates. So they can get the grasp of it. So they're going to school where they're going to the physical training, and then they have to also go to class.
Yeah, my dad and his dad were in the Air Force and both retired after 20 years. And so I took the ASVAB in high school because I was in a military community in Nebraska. And I got highly recruited from the Navy, and I was like, you don't want me. Like, I'm not your type. And they were like, no, you scored high in these two sections. And I was like, but you don't want me in the Navy. I would not thrive.
Why did you think you not thrive in the Navy?
Oh, well, first of all, I don't think I would have passed the physical to get in. That's first thing. Second thing, I have absolutely no idea how I scored so high in the math portion of that test, because I suck at math. So I have no idea. Now, I scored really high in the map portion as well, because they would have like maps and you would have to answer questions based on the aerial view or whatever. I don't remember exactly how it was done, but so that's probably why they would want me as someone to help navigate the ships. I don't know, but I was like, I don't know how I passed that math part because I suck at math. So I don't think you want me in the Navy. Thank you.
So what would you have preferred? Like if you wanted to join the armed forces, what would you have preferred?
I probably would have done the Air Force because I was in ROTC.
Ah.
And, my dad, my grandpa, my other grandpa, my grandma, and my aunt. And then there's lots of other people, but all of them close to me were in the Air Force.
Well, that's a good choice. That's definitely have. I don't want to call it the most passable physical, but I think it's the most passable physical. I think with the Air Force, it's more about they
Brains?
stress you more about your the pomp and circumstance, the parade, marching, and all that sort of things. That keeping your room neat. It's more stressful in that way than it is about physical fitness. But there's definitely some physical fitness training going on.
Oh yeah. When my aunt, she was 34, I think the cutoff was like 35. She went into the Air Force at 34 and had to get down to like teeny tiny size. And she made it. And she was just in the band.
Right. So one of the things we were talking about the opening scenes, right? So one of the things that I saw, like I said, I don't remember Logia playing the father, sleeping, with two girls in the bed, but it was like he was mostly naked, and I was like, oh, I've seen Logia in a lot of movies, and I was like, I'm seeing way too much of Logia. It's like it's like entirely too much of Logia. And then there's a scene where he's like in the bathroom talking to Richard Gere, and it's like he's wearing like this I guess they're button up underpants, but the button is undone, so it's open. So now I'm seeing even more Logia flesh than I ever wanted to see in my life.
Yeah. And he kept putting his hands in his pants.
Right.
I was like, dude, not a good look.
It's entirely too much. What other part do you remember that you like?
Let's see here. I always really like when they do the underwater test.
Yeah.
I like that part. And I like when he notices that he doesn't have friends. And so when they're doing the first time they do the obstacle course and the other guy who comes second turns around and goes back and is cheering people on, and he's just sitting over by himself against the wall, and he realizes this guy is only here for himself. I really like that you can see immediately that he wants to break him of that, and that he needs to be a team with these people.
Right. He hasn't yet learned to be a team player at that point. That's the first time they showed the obstacle test. And you touched on his steers and queers comment that because it's like when when I originally saw that, I really didn't think nothing of it. We normally, when we want to insult each other, we try to refer to our friends as not being straight. But now you look at it through this lens. It's like now it's not speech that would be permitted in the army. I don't think, because now it's now it's casting a whole segment of the population in a bad light, and you try not to do that, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, like when especially when you're dealing with a group of boys or men or boys or whatnot, and you want to insult them, you call them ladies. That's kind of the same thing, right? But I don't know if that's looked on as bad as some of the other comments, but it's that scene when he's inspecting new recruits. That's like when he first comes on the scene and he's doing his drill sergeant thing. That it's just perfect, right? So I super love that. And then, like, there are a few scenes that I remember crisp, like, stayed with me throughout my entire life. So one of the things that had stayed with me is when Zach and Sid, they're being punished, like, so they have to do push-ups for doing something inappropriate, and then these two women walk by from the from the town, and Sid remarks on one of them is bodacious tatas. That stuck with me for my entire life. Did you see the one walking with those bodacious tatas? I was like, I don't know. It just struck me as extremely amusing, and actually not that bodacious.
I don't know. When they're at the club and she comes in, I was like, wow, jeez. Or when they go to the bar, and she shows up, I was like, dang, girl, okay, put those away.
Another thing that got me was the when they're running on the beach, they're running in full uniform. I was like, oh, that takes a lot of work. They were, well, the recruits were in full uniform except for the shoes. They were wearing tennis shoes running on the beach, which is hard. And then the drill instructor, he was in full uniform with the full uniform boots. And I remember those days, and I'm just tired for them.
Right? And those uniforms are not like easily, you don't easily move in them. Like, they're very tight fitted outfits or uniforms. So it's not easy to run in that stuff.
Yeah, it's not necessarily tight so much as that they're kind of stiff, because they require you to starch and iron them.
Yes.
And they're 100% cotton, I think, or there might be a cotton polyester. A cotton polyester blend. So when you put them on, they're very stiff. You're right, they're hard to move in. And what's more grating is like when you start to sweat in them, because you start to sweat almost immediately because you're covered in head to toe, and your trousers, the end of your trousers are tucked into your boots, right? So not comfortable.
No. And like my dad, because he was in the Air Force, my uniform was always like pristine,
right? And
he would take plastic pieces and cut them out and put them on the back side of my name tag and my ribbons. And so that's heavy too. You know, you got all this stuff plus the plastic, and it was very stiff and cumbersome. And then the shoes are stiff because, you know,
right.
Yeah, you can't have worn out shoes, and they have to be spick and span,
and they have to be tough, right? They gotta last.
Mm-hmm.
So
I gotta tell you, if you're a girl and you have to wear the tights or the nylons and the skirt, and it's ugh, awful.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I bet. And then there was a part where they showed them and they were taking a class. See, a lot of this is nostalgia. So I remember
Mhm.
all of the physical exercises. I remember having to be punished. Like a lot of times what would happen is that if one recruit did something wrong, then the entire platoon was punished for that
Mhm.
one recruit or whatever. So I remember all of that. Um, and then you would have to go to what they call the course, or that's the class, the classroom instruction. So after
Mhm.
all of this physical activity, it's like you wake up, you do your physical activity, you go to breakfast, you out after breakfast, a little bit more physical activity, and then you go to course.
Yeah.
And the course is like it's basically classroom instruction. And now you're challenged to stay awake.
Mhm.
It's it was bad. It was and I remember it fondly now, but at the time I was going through it not so fondly. But this movie brings back those memories.
Yeah, and when she can't get over the wall, um, does he call her uh Sugar Puss?
Something like that.
That wouldn't be allowed today.
Probably not. But then he softens a little bit and tells her to go around the wall. So it's like she's
Yeah.
working on that wall the entire time.
Mhm.
Another part. You what do you think about the kung fu part?
So for some reason, I thought it was boxing. So I was very confused when it was kung fu that they were doing. I don't know why, but I guess maybe I just associate Navy with boxing,
Right.
and so I was like, oh, oh, they're kicking. For some reason, I thought they were. Well, to be fair, he does kind of put his dukes up like he's about to punch him in the face.
Right, right.
So maybe that's why I thought that. But yeah.
I mentioned that because I like the part where um David Caruso's character, Topper Daniels, he says, like the drill sergeant calls for a volunteer. So he volunteers Daniels, and Daniel was like, he can't touch me. It's against the rules.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, it's so not against the rules.
No. No, it's not.
Yeah, for some reason,
Poor Daniels.
yeah, poor Daniels. It's just, oh man, he really got the worst end of that deal.
Mhm.
Oh, remember that part when they was going to town?
Uh-huh.
So what did you think of that part?
Um,
It was the
like,
part when they went to town, they were dressed in white uniforms, and then the townies in the town, they was giving them a hard time.
oh yeah. I mean, like, I'm sure they're probably annoyed by it, especially the men, because all their women want to be with these naval guys who fly in and boat in and boat out, I guess.
I mean, I guess, but I feel like there are a lot of people in that town. It's enough people in that town where they didn't need to be so hostile to the military.
Yeah.
It's like all they did was walk into the bar and meet some friends that were
Mhm.
already set to meet. It's not like they were hitting on the women. The women were already there waiting for the men to show up to take them
Yeah.
to or just have a good time. And they're just minding their own business. But the dudes in
Uh-huh.
this bar are extremely hostile and they're trying to pick a fight. It's
Yeah,
like,
and then they were on the wrong side of that fight.
right. And it's like they were trying to let it go. They were so trying to let it go.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to fight you. Just leave it alone. I'm trying to walk away. And the dudes just wouldn't let it go. And then got beat up. And Mayo didn't get any blood on his stark white uniform.
Right?
Like he bloodied the dude, and his uniform was still perfect. So not even expending much effort to defend himself.
You know, I'm kind of surprised that Mayo had somebody else shine his stuff for him, because it seems like something he would have done for his dad, and he'd be really good at it. Like, I feel like his dad would make him shine his stuff for him. So I would just assume he would do it and people would pay him to actually do it for them.
I think part of it is that there probably wouldn't be enough time to do it all because you got to do courses and whatnot, and
Mhm.
maybe you only have enough time to shine your shoes. Another way to look at it is that maybe that's precisely why he had somebody else shine his shoes, well, like shining everybody else's shoes and shining everybody else's buckles, because now he's sick of shining shoes and shining buckles.
Could be.
And there was a lot of that going on. Like I don't remember there being any strict rules about you shining your own stuff.
Yeah,
They didn't
'cause I
like the drill sergeants didn't care as long as the stuff was shined. So if you paid another recruit to shine your shoes and buckles and metal parts or whatnot, I don't think the drill sergeant would have cared.
no. Yeah, 'cause, they all help each other out to clean their rooms and make sure their rooms are all put together. Because it's not one of you that's gonna get in trouble, it's all of you.
Right. But
So
I guess it's because of the scope of Mayo's enterprise that got him in
Mhm.
trouble, not the fact that he was doing it.
Yeah.
And then when when the drill sergeant was trying to make him quit, that was also an awesome part.
Mhm.
So that's one of the parts that I find that was most impactful, especially after I went through all of that, right? So in the military we call that getting smoked. He was
Mhm.
Mayo was being smoked by the drill instructor. So having to do, and it's like when you think about it deeply, the thing about it is that the drill instructor is not there all the time. He has a family, he has to go home, and then there are usually a couple of other drill instructors that take their place and they train the recruits in rotation. So
Mhm.
the drill instructor has to get time off from dealing with these knuckleheads and then come back, fresh after a couple of days or the weekend or, a day off or whatever, and then have to continue the training process. So Emil, not Emil, what's his name? The drill guy, Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah.
I'm getting out. Foley, that's his name, Emil Foley. I
Mhm.
did say it right. So anyway, Sergeant Emil Foley had to take the day off, work extra. So he wasn't taking the day off like he
Mhm.
normally does. Like, remember, everybody was leaving to go on Liberty. And so he decided, instead of going back home, he decided to stay on base, work extra hours just to punish one of his recruits.
Yep.
So that was like, just so that he can be personally abusive. Like, he didn't even hand off this responsibility to another drill sergeant. He decided to do it himself. So spraying him with water, making him do drills with the mock rifle. Normally they're not real rifles when you're exercising with them. They're
Mhm.
mock rifles that weigh the same as real rifles, like the students
They're
in
heavy.
ROTC. Yeah, they're heavy. Not fun to like do the things that he was doing with them.
Yeah.
And doing push-ups in the mud, just all of them. He was just getting absolutely smoked. So, and then there was a part where it's like he was trying to make him quit, and he didn't want to quit. And then, one of the things he said while he was smoking Zach, was that he pointed out to Cigar. He called Cigar like
Yeah.
a smoking cigar. So Cigar had also stayed behind, but she was
Mhm.
working out on her own, doing exercises to try to build her strength so she can get over that wall because it's still a
Mhm.
problem. And he pointed to her and he said, "See that Cigar over there? She may not make it, but she got more heart than you would ever
Yeah.
have." Right? I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's some awesome talk right there."
Yeah.
And because the drill sergeant's kicking him out because he's being dishonorable. So he
Mhm.
says, "Okay, Mel, you out." Because he's trying to get Mel to quit. Mel wouldn't quit. He says, "Okay, Mel, you out." And he says, "Don't you do that! Don't you do that! I got nowhere else to go!" I was like, "Oh, that was one of the most impactful moments of my entire life."
Yeah, like, it was good, but also insane.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely filleted himself open to the drill sergeant, because it's like he said that he got nowhere else to go. He was crying like a child. He was like,
Mhm.
he was done, right? It's like if he wasn't going to give up. And then when he was going to
broke him.
get kicked out, it was like he he threw himself at the mercy of the court.
Mhm. Yeah, like, I was watching that, I was like, "Wow, that's a really good performance by Richard Gere," but then I was like, "But it's really good by him as well." So I was just like, "Dang, that's a good scene."
Yeah, yeah. So we've done all of this talk about Mayo and his training. We never talked about one of the main players in this, Paula Pokrivka, played by Deborah Winger. So what did you think of their relationship?
So, no, I see, I read some trivia on the movie too, so I won't go much into that, but
Right.
I didn't see a connection, and one of my main notes was, their kissing didn't seem good at all. For this to be like a romance movie, I thought it was like no emotion, no, I don't know. I I didn't believe it. It wasn't believable. Um, she did a good job. I think she was a good actress in this. Um, but I didn't believe the two of them. Now, when they were laughing and having fun, that seemed believable. But their intimate moments and their, like, cutesy little stuff, it didn't hit right for me. I actually thought Sid and Lynette were a better couple.
Right.
Well, until the end, and she was a terrible person.
Here's the thing. I didn't catch whether or not they had chemistry because I'm so bad at determining whether a couples have great chemistry or have poor chemistry. I guess it all looks the same to me, but I think I probably uh negotiated that with that Mayo has built up a bunch of walls around himself. Like he
Mhm.
hangs out with his father with prostitutes. Like you should never see your father naked, and you should. And so he went past that. He's having a orgy with his father. That's gross. That's so gross. And so
Yeah.
if he's just if his main female companions are prostitutes, then he doesn't really know how to make a connection with a regular woman, right? So if there
Mhm.
was a problem, like if you don't see a connection or if the chemistry is off, it's really because of Mayo, because Mayo doesn't know how to connect with a regular
Yeah.
woman. Like he has no idea how to talk to a woman, how to treat a woman, or how to open up to a woman. So like after the fight, he didn't. She wanted to talk to him, and he didn't want to communicate. He was basically closed off to her, and
Mhm.
he didn't know how to deal with it. Right, so he's he needs her, but at the same time pushing her away.
Yeah, and he even said when she asked him, like, "What do you typically do with the women?" And he said, "I don't have women." Um, so, he's very stunted in that. I'm sure he has mommy issues.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so I don't know how risque I can get, but he's kind
As
of a
risque as you
selfish
want.
he's kind of a selfish lover. He was making her do all the work. I noticed that. Um, and I was just like, wow, okay, selfish.
I didn't catch that, but
I was just like, oh, all
right,
right. They're going at it again. She's on top. She's doing whatever.
right,
She's doing all the heavy lifting.
right. Well, like I said, I don't catch where there's bad chemistry or whatever, but I would just credit that to like him being closed off as a character. And then like at the end of near the end, after they discover Sid, he's even more closed off. And then she tries to say something like, I want to love you. He's like, no, you don't, or something like that, right? And he's
Yeah.
further pushing her away. And then this is after he had like just kind of cut her off, right? And I was like, he's
Yeah.
such a bad person. Like I thought Sid was bad, but they're both as bad, right? I think Sid was like he had a girlfriend at home, but he's also having an affair with Lynette or something like
Oh,
that. That seemed to be
no, no,
happening.
no. It's his dead brother's girl that he, I guess, decided they were supposed to get married, but he died in the war. And he decided he would marry her because that was the right thing to do.
Right, right.
And so he doesn't want to be with that girl. he wants to be with Lynette. He loves Lynette.
Right.
But I actually think the love story is with Sid and Zach. I
Oh
actually
yeah.
think that's the
Yeah,
better love
absolutely.
story.
Yeah, because Zach can absolutely have a connection with men because he was able to build a connection with his father. He
Mhm.
sort of has a connection with the drill sergeant. He builds friendship with the other people in the platoon. So yeah, he absolutely can build a relationship with Sid, but he couldn't do it with women. He had a super hard time, and he had a hard time up until he basically changed his mind, right?
Mhm.
So we kind of touch on how what's her name was being Lynette was kind of a bad person, how she only wanted
Ugh.
to be with Sid because he was supposed to be a naval aviator. She thought that she had hit the jackpot, and then
Mhm.
he had flipped it on her, and she didn't appreciate it. He thought that she liked him for him. It's like no,
Yeah.
she didn't like him for him. She liked a naval aviator.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
And to try and trap him.
Well, it's like she kind of alluded to it. Like she already said that that's something that she would consider. She would definitely consider
Mhm.
chopping a person. And Deborah Winger's character, Paula, was like, that's disgusting. And she was
Mhm.
like, and Lynette she was in a position where she would do anything to get herself a naval boyfriend or
Yeah.
husband. So that she
And
kind of,
then
I'll go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, and Paula also thought about doing it too once she realized she was in love with this guy and he was trying to go away from her, or broke it off with her. She was considering doing whatever she needed to do to keep him, and I was just like, "That no, that's not the way to do it."
Well, I think what her thing was that like her mom had an issue where like she fell in love with a cadet and the cadet
Yeah.
left her mom and she was born like she was a product of that union.
Mhm.
So she saw when Lynette was going to go to the base and look for Zach after Zach didn't call, like Zach wasn't calling. Zach had ghosted her
Yeah.
in an old-fashioned way, and it was so easy
Yep.
to do it back in the day. And so he wasn't calling her, he wasn't returning her calls, he's pretending to be too busy. He's just so he ghosted her, and later on telling Sid that he had broken off with her. And then at the factory, hold on, let's take a break and talk about how she works at a paper factory. Have you ever been near a paper factory?
I've been close to a paper mill, yeah.
Yeah, oh my god, they stink. They
They
stink
smell
so
so bad.
bad.
So bad. Mhm.
So anyways, back to the story. So she's trying to she's leaving work, she's getting off early, she's going to go to the base to find Zach and find out and basically try to convince Zach to come back with her or stay with her or whatever. And her mom stopped her, and her mom is like, if he didn't call, he's gone. Her mom is trying to let Lynette know that it's over between the two of you because he's not calling. It means that he doesn't want to see you. And that really devastates her. It crushes her. So I thought that was good. That was a good part. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, not a romantic setting, because it smells so terribly bad.
Right.
But she's seen her mom work at this paper mill since she was in her 30s, and she doesn't want to end up like that.
Right. Well, she
And
kind of wants what Lynette wants. She kind of
Mhm.
wants to be taken off too, but she's not as focused as Lynette. It's not as important to her as it was to Lynette. So if she happened to find somebody who lived in town, like when Zach had broken up with her, she kind of found a rebound dude who
yeah,
was who also worked in the Navy, but I think he was like someone who lived in the town. He wasn't
yeah,
somebody
like a
who was going to
portsman.
be reassigned. He would eventually be reassigned, but he wasn't not as often as like the students. Like as soon as the students
Mhm.
graduate, they were gone. But this dude was going to be in the town. But anyway, she found herself a rebound guy. So it wasn't as important to her as it was to Lynette. She was going to trap a dude. She was going to pretend to
Yeah.
be pregnant and if she had to in order to force a dude to marry her.
Mhm.
So
Mm-mm-mm.
were there any other parts? I think we touched on many of the major parts. Was there any other parts that you liked about this movie that had an impact on you?
No, nothing else
Awesome.
that I can think of.
All right. So I think that there's some other scenes that were important that we're going to touch on in the trivia. So we have concluded our favorite parts, and up next is the trivia.
Dun dun dun.
And we're back with the trivia from IMDb, and I'll go ahead and start us off. But before, I always like to tell my audiences that the IMDb trivia can be suspect. I did my best to kind of edit it down to where it would make sense. So here we go. Director Taylor Hackford purposefully kept Louis Gossett Jr. living in separate quarters from the rest of the cast to further his character's intimidating presence as a drill sergeant, which is interesting because you see a lot of this with directors. Like if there are two people, even actors would decide to do this, or there are two people who are supposed to be adversaries. They keep apart where they're not talking to each other. Something like this happened in Silence of the Lambs with Anthony Hopkins and what's her name? Please help me out. I can't remember her name.
Oh goodness.
Nope.
I know her name and I can't think of it.
Well, I just called her what's her name for now. The audience is screaming at me about what her name is.
Right.
It has escaped me, but that's okay. You know what I'm talking about. So
Yes.
what's her name? And Anthony Hopkins. They kind of didn't see that much of each other when they were filming, and that is because Anthony Hopkins terrified her. And the opposite would happen. So there are times when there are people that are supposed to portray best friends in a movie. So they might do what happened in this movie called Project X. It's not the original from 1986. This is actually a party movie where these teenagers get together and they throw a huge party at one of the teenagers' houses. So the director wanted the three actors to get to know each other, be comfortable with each other, so when they're acting on screen, it's believable that they're best friends. And so they do that. If you should see the movie, they do come off as believable best friends.
Yeah, they also did both those things for Scream. They never got to see Ghostface. They didn't interact with him. So they would be afraid of him when he called. And then on the other side, they did that for the two main characters in The Sandlot.
Okay, awesome.
So they had them like spend a lot of time before the movie started, and people, even the cast, thought they were friends because they spent so much time together.
That is how you do it. So what's next up on the trivia?
It says Lisa L. Eli Bacher, whatever.
That sounds good.
Said the hardest part about doing the obstacle course scenes was pretending she was out of shape. In fact, reports were that she was in the best physical condition of all the actors. So she was killing it. And, I actually think it would have been better for them to just have her kill it and have Daniels be the one that couldn't get over the wall. Or
right.
one of the small guy. Like,
yeah.
That would have been more entertaining, actually.
That definitely, because that's definitely a kind of predictable route to have the woman, the weaker person in this particular scenario. But the only thing I found irritating about this particular story point was that by the time they got to the final obstacle course, like the last time they show it, she's still having problems getting over the wall. I feel like she would have been able to get over the wall. Like she was putting in extra work. She was doing pull-ups. So she should have been able to get over that wall by the time she did the final obstacle course, because she was training herself to finish that particular obstacle. Like, because she could do all of the other obstacles. The only one that was getting her in her way was a wall. I feel like after, like, they were there for like 12 weeks. So after 12 weeks, she definitely would have gotten over the wall. I think they played that a little too hard.
I think it would have been great for him to call one of the guys Sugar Puss and just like go around.
Right. That would have worked too.
Yeah, I think that would have been much better.
Right.
I think if it was made nowadays, they probably would do that actually.
Yeah, they definitely would subvert our expectations. So up next, Richard Gere said to Barbara Walters, he did the movie strictly for the money. It wound up being his biggest box office hit until Pretty Woman that came out in 1990. So I guess he didn't.
Right.
Right. I guess he underestimated how impactful this film would be.
Like, he just seems pretty cocky and into himself. I don't know. He might be a very super nice guy, but I just feel like he always kind of playing that guy that like has all the money, has all the ladies, and just kind of cocky.
I mean,
So
he
that
might be, but I
that
don't know the
sounds
man.
like something he would do.
Right.
So we have Louis Gossett Jr.'s Best Actor in a Supporting Role Academy Award win was the first Oscar in that category won by an African American and the first one for an African American in any acting category since Sidney Poitier's Best Actor for Lilies in the Field in 1963.
Yeah, he was definitely killing it, that Louis
Oh,
Gossett
yeah.
Jr. in that movie. Casting the role of Gunnery Sergeant Emile Foley was very difficult. First, none of the A-list actors approached for the part, including Jack Nicholson, were interested. Second, Mandy Patinkin gave an audition that the producers loved, but director Taylor Hackford nixed their plan to cast Patinkin. Oh, shoot, I messed that name up. Patinkin, that's how you say it. Patinkin, because he felt the actor was too ethnic, quote. Or he's probably saying that he's too Jewish. Because I was thinking, like, isn't Patinkin white? How is it too ethnic? So I went and looked up the Wikipedia page on Patinkin, and it turns out he has Jewish heritage. I was like, oh my God, really? Did he lose his role because they thought he looked too Jewish? That's horrible. So they thought he looked too ethnic, quote unquote, to play the drill instructor. Finally, the producers did some research. Think of that, some research. How about that? They did some research in Pensacola, Florida, and learned that all of the top drill instructors were African Americans. Oh my God, you mean to tell me that an African American can play a drill instructor, or perhaps a Jewish person can play a drill instructor, or perhaps a Latinx American can play a drill instructor? Are you kidding me? Is that possible? It's happening in real life, I guess. I'm sorry if I'm too out there.
And then they can win
I got
Academy
triggered.
Awards.
Right. So this led to Louis Gossett Jr. being cast for the role that would win him an Academy Award. So yeah, I was triggered when I read that.
Yeah, that seems crazy.
Seems a little racist. And we're going to get into some sexism later on. I don't think it's in this next one, but it's definitely in the trivia.
Yeah, it says producer Don Simpson unsuccessfully demanded that the ballad Up Where You Belong be cut from the film, saying the song is no good, it isn't a hit. The song later became the #1 song on the Billboard charts and won the Academy Award for Best Song. He wanted a similar song called On the Wings of Love by Jeffrey Osborne. The song was released a few months later. It peaked at number 29 on the Billboard charts.
See, we can both read. I guarantee it. But yeah, so Don Simpson, obviously a great producer, but sucks at picking hit songs. Maybe you should just let the director figure out which songs are good. Because yeah, Up Where We Belong is an outstanding ballad. So Paula shows Zach a photograph of a biological father, revealing that he was an officer candidate. The picture was actually of screenwriter Douglas Day Stewart when he graduated from Pensacola. So the reason that this movie is so authentic and feels so right is because the writer is an able aviator. So that was good.
It says Deborah Winger negotiated her own contract, no agent, before she had seen the revised script and was not happy when she found out that they would be doing a nude scene. She asked to be covered up in the scene, but was told that since she hadn't thought to ask for no nudity clause in her contract, she would have to do the scene as written.
That was a very dirty trick that they did. That's when I mentioned the sexism is starting to creep in now,
Mhm.
because Harvey Weinstein isn't the only one.
Right?
So initially, the MPAA gave the film an X rating because of the sex scene in which Deborah Winger was on top of Richard Gere and moved her hips in a way the censors did not approve. Naughty, naughty.
Mhm.
Thought was given to an appeal, but ultimately Taylor Hackford, I almost messed up his name, and Paramount Pictures opted to move from the wide shot to a closer one, making it less objectionable in the censors' eyes. So
They were probably just as mad that she was doing all the damn work.
probably.
Like, sheesh. Come on. Mayo does the same moves in the bar patron, Troy, that the muggers did to him in the beginning of the movie was a child when he was a child. What is wrong with me?
Oh, nothing. Nothing.
Where I can read. I'm getting like back in elementary school vibes where you have to like read
Sarah,
aloud.
read the next paragraph. So I didn't recognize that. I didn't realize those were the same moves, but he looked good doing them.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize that either.
right. I guess because
like, oh.
maybe it wasn't like the same shot.
Mhm.
It wasn't the same angle. Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't paying too close attention to it either. I just like, oh, he did it. He kicked him good because he's an asshole. So anyways, according to Louis Gossett Jr. in his book, An Actor and a Gentleman, Richard Gere and Deborah Winger did not get along during filming and would distance themselves from each other significantly while the camera wasn't rolling. Publicly, she called him a brick wall, while he admitted that there was tension between them. Even though Gere was playing the title role and had top billing and more screen time, he reacted badly when he realized that Winger had the acting chops and charisma to steal every scene she was in, resulting in an Academy Award nomination as Best Actress. 30 years later, Gere was complimentary towards Winger when she said that she was much more open to the camera than he was, and he appreciated the fact that she presented him with an award at the Rome Film Festival. So, so there was some grumpiness between them, and see, she calls him a brick wall, and I don't know if because he was building a character or he's just a dick in real life, and so it's kind of hard to gauge that. But
Yeah.
if you're supposed to be romantic partners in a movie, then maybe not be a big ball. And plus, he was jealous of her, and at least he's man enough to admit that.
Yeah, I mean, the girl should outshine you in those scenes. Like, that's the whole purpose.
Right. And I think women in general tend to outshine men as in acting. But another thing is that I think they focus on Winger specifically because there are scenes when she's with another woman or she's with her family or she's with her mom, and even when she's around other women, she's still stealing the scene. But then again, the movie is focused on her character anyway, so I guess that goes without saying.
Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, well, I mean, that's the whole point. Like, that's why they put her in red. That's why when she is around him, she's all dressed up. It's to get the attention on her, to show why he would pick her at the end and carry her off and put her hat on his head, and and that's why they're so in love.
Right.
And that's why when she's with the girls outside of him, she has a hat on, she's covered up, looks dowdy. She's supposed to look great when she's around him and still the scene,
Right, yeah. She's doing all the things.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah. I know you can read. I have confidence in you. The audience has confidence in you. Go for it. Give it all you got.
In a 2013 interview, Gere said that he and Gossett were specially trained for the karate scenes that they used in the basic training sequence in the film. Gere had apparently mastered the karate moves, while Gossett reportedly continued to struggle with them after being trained. Frustrated and not thinking clearly, Gere accidentally kicked Gossett in the groin during filming, to which Gossett responded by leaving the set very abruptly. He did not show up again to the set for another 2 days afterwards. In order to keep the filming movie forward, that's weird word, and not fall behind, Gere and the director Taylor Hackford called upon another black karate expert who stood in as a double for Gossett so the scene could wrap up filming. Despite this incident, Gere has said that he takes full responsibility for it, even all these years later, and that has not ruined a mutual friendship between him and Gossett. He said that he and Gossett still see each other on occasion and reminisce about how much they enjoyed making this film together.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of establishing that at least in his early days, Gere was kind of a dick,
Yeah.
impatient, and full of testosterone.
Mhm.
Which is interesting because I guess that it mirrors the shot in the groin that he took and that was filmed in the actual movie.
Well, and I feel like Louis Gossett Jr. Stole the scene in every scene he's in, but he didn't have a problem with that.
Well, Louis Gossett Jr. is older. Like he's a master of his craft. So it's like if he had a problem with that, then he is a problem, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you're not gonna outdo Henry Gossett Jr. when he's on the top of his game.
And and I feel like Sid also kind of outshined him a lot. So it's like maybe you should really think about things with your
right. Now, how about just worry about you. Don't worry about people
yeah.
being better than you. It's not a competition. Don't think of it as a competition. You just worry about you and you're gonna be all right.
Hopefully he was better when Pretty Woman came around, you know?
Yeah. Well, it seems like he's made amends with both Deborah Winger and Louis Gossett. So
Yeah.
it seems like he's he's matured in his old age. So the motel scenes were filmed at the Tides Motel in Port Townsend, Washington. The room they used was still has a wooden plaque on the door commemorating its use in the movie. And I've heard that the hotel has been heavily renovated, but they got a plaque saying this is where An Officer and a Gentleman was filmed. This is where Sid died. How about that? You can come here and see the room that we've renovated so you won't recognize it, but still, it would have been right here somewhere.
Come find it.
Right, come find it.
Former Marine drill instructor turned actor R. Lee Emery coached Louis Gossett Jr. on his role as Gunnery Sergeant Foley. Ermy, I think it's Ermy, played a tough and profane drill instructor in Full Metal Jacket. Coincidentally, he was initially hired as a technical advisor for that movie as well, before landing the role.
Have you seen Full Metal Jacket?
Nope.
Oh, so that's awesome. It also has Vince D'Onofrio. I think I said that.
Oh,
right.
okay, Vincent D'Onofrio.
D'Onofrio. God, that's how you say his name. I knew how to say his name. I have been pronouncing it on and off correctly, and sometimes I forget how to pronounce it. Right, D'Onofrio. Yes, Kingpin himself. So that was one of his earliest roles, and it was he has a very important part in that movie. How did you find like the military stuff in this movie? Do you find yourself watching a lot of military movies or not watching them, or how's your general feeling about that?
I've seen a lot of military movies. I thought it was done well. It seemed real, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
it had that feel to it. So
It feels authentic.
yeah, and like I said with like reference to Top Gun, when my dad when he was still in the service and we would go visit him, they would play sand volleyball. It would be like a picnic day, and So when I saw Top Gun, I thought it was about the Air Force because my dad, there's planes just like the Air Force, and they would play volleyball, and I thought that it was based on the Air Force. And when I realized it was Marines, I was so confused because I was like, but there's airplanes, and Dad is in the Air Force where they fly planes, and they're like, no, they have naval pilots.
Right.
And I was like, but they played volleyball, and you guys played volleyball.
Right. I realized I had way more trivia than I thought that we had time for. But so we're gonna skip most of this. But the reason I asked you that question specifically is because you really I'd really like to check out Full Metal Jacket. Just
Okay.
because Arlie Ermey's there. So Arlie Ermey, he was there as a technical advisor for an actor that was supposed to play the drill sergeant.
Mhm.
But when the directors and the producers saw him, they was like, "Oh my God, this is the guy. This should be the actor that plays the drill sergeant. This should be him." And so it's this same person that trained or was the acting coach for Louis Gossett Jr. for his
Mhm.
role in An Officer and a Gentleman, because that was his thing. He trained people how to act like they've been in the military for 20 years or whatever. So that's why, like in Louis, when you see Louis Gossett Jr., that's why his movements are so crisp, and why he has that expression where he comes with, calling people mayonnaise, or,
Yeah.
all that comes from Arlie Ermey, because
Mhm.
a lot of the stuff that he was saying in like Full Metal Jacket, a lot of that was improvised, just because that's what drill sergeants did. They go, they call you names, they try to emasculate you, and then
Mhm.
at the same time trying to build you up. So they're doing all of that. They're doing all of the work. So yeah, that's
Do you think
exactly.
he also was the drill sergeant for Mr. Payne? Major Payne.
Oh,
Sorry,
Major Payne.
maybe
I,
Major
I have
Payne.
no idea who trained him. You talk about I forgot his name. I just did his movie yesterday.
Yeah.
The Last Boy Scout. I not well, I didn't. That was the last episode we released. Was The Last Boy Scout. Damon
Yeah.
Wayans. I got it.
Yeah,
I
Damon
got it. It was
Wayans.
in my brain somewhere. I have no idea, but it was a funny part.
Because he kind of feels like he's taking the spirit of the gunnery sergeant here
Right.
in his role.
He's absolutely exaggerating it. So
Yes.
but it works because it's a comedy. But
Yeah.
it's one of those that it's like it's sort of funny, but not as funny as I
Authentic.
would like it to be.
Yeah.
So let me get out this final piece of trivia. Richard Gere balked at shooting the ending of the film, in which Zach arrives at Paula's factory wearing his naval dress whites and carried her off the factory floor. Gere thought that the ending would not work because it's too sentimental. Taylor Hackford agreed with Gere until, during rehearsal, the extras playing the workers began to cheer and cry, and Gere saw the scene later with the music underneath it, up where we belong, and at the right tempo, and he said it gave him chills. And Gere is now convinced Hackford made the right decision. Screenwriter Michael Hogg, in his book Writing Screenplays That Sell, echoed this opinion. "I don't believe," he said, "that those who criticize this Cinderella-style ending are paying very close attention to who exactly was rescuing whom."
Mm-hmm.
So, and that makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, because the character Zach, he changes. It's almost like he changes his mind on the last minute, because remember, he went into the Navy because it seemed like there was something missing in his life, and you could tell that was the main motivation, because when he was threatened to get kicked out of the Navy, he said he had nowhere else to go. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever he was looking for, he wasn't going to find it at home with his dad. He couldn't imagine a life where he grew up. Yeah, like he didn't know what he was going to do if he got kicked out of the Navy. He had to go back home. He knew there was something missing in his life, and he just didn't know what. And he was basically lost. He's pushing everybody away. He's just being a dick to everybody because he doesn't know how to basically be a friend or treat people or whatever. And so it was a collection of things. It was him basically getting that camaraderie with his with his class. It was his friendship with Sid. It was losing Sid. And then after losing Sid, he was threatening to lose Paula that he had already pushed away. And I think it was at that point, at the last minute, he realized that was what was going to save him. That was what he was actually looking for. So he goes back to Paula, and then, he lifts her off her feet. Everybody's screaming and cheering. And then, Lynette going, "You did it, Paula, go, you got him," or whatever. It was just like, it almost in a bitter sort of way. But yeah. And so it was not Paula being rescued from the factory. It was Zach being rescued from basically self-destruction, right? So it was Paula rescuing Zach from himself. So I think that works for me. I think that's how we're supposed to read this movie.
Yeah, and I had a thought that Seeger, if she's an officer and she has a husband, that is also an officer and a gentleman. Just as a thought.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm because she was hanging out with one of the guys. I'm sure she decided that was going to be her man.
Because for some reason, every time I hear the title of this movie, I think that it's about two people, an officer and a gentleman. And I'm always like, no, he's the officer and he's the gentleman. But I mean,
yeah, it's supposed to be describing the same person. It's a saying that people would say a lot about if they were complimentary to their fellow officer, or if they were making an introduction. It's like, he's an officer and a gentleman. Like, he's both of those things. Officers are supposed to be gentlemen. You remember, like, in the beginning of the movie when his father, Daddy Mayo, was berating his son because it's like, "Oh, you can't be an officer. You have a tattoo. They don't allow the likes of you," because officers are supposed to be like highfalutin types.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of a reputation where you have the highfalutin officers and the grimy enlisted personnel, like the sergeants and the petty officers and whatnot. They're all grimy in the dirt and whatnot, and the officer is kind of above all of that. But it's not always like that. It's not necessarily so. It's just kind of a belief that people have. But that's why people say an officer and a gentleman, because they're supposed to be one and the same person.
Yeah.
But we have discussed the trivia, so let's head on down, see what the critics thought. So the critics' thoughts, we have the critics gave it a 46%. The audience gave it a 68% on Rotten. You know what? I don't know if this is the correct one. I don't know. Look, hold on. Let me go and look this up real quick. Because I'm sure that I looked it up, but because I copied the reviews. The reviews are right, but I'm not sure if the score is right. Hold on a second. And there it is. Richard Gere, Deborah Winger, Louis Gossett Jr., 1982. Okay, so yeah, it's totally wrong. So actually, the critics on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 79% and an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. And let me see what IMDb said, because I usually like to get both of them. IMDb, an officer and a gentleman. And that one is 7.0. So I got that one correct. Somehow I didn't copy them both. I don't know what happened. But sometimes it slides through the cracks. Some things slide through the cracks. So now that we know what the critics thought, why don't you give us a couple of their reviews?
Jeff Andrew, Timeout, macho, materialistic, and pro-militarist is an objectable little number made of all the more insidious by the way Hackford pulls the strings and turns into a heart-chilling weepy.
Okay. It's like I feel it's overly critical, like a macho, yeah, sure, materialistic, I guess, yeah. Pro-militarist, is that supposed to be a bad thing? It's not the military making the decisions; it's the policymakers making the decisions.
Yeah.
The military is just doing what they're told in a way. It's like the military doesn't decide to fight in Africa. They're being sent over there, so
Yep.
I'm not exactly sure.
It's a hurry up and wait.
Right.
Uh,
Objectionable, I don't know. So go ahead and read the next one.
Frederick and Mary and Broussard.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah, spirituality in practice. An obstinate gentleman succeeds as both a magical love story and as a convincing portrait of one's individual passage into manhood.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm more in line with that one.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm about to mess it all up. Ginger Varney of LA Weekly wrote, "The story is exactly as hammy as my summary makes it sound. Something of a throwback to those films from the 40s when it was the exception rather than the rule for the male lead to not like himself, and Gere is no John Garfield," which is, I don't know if that's accurate. I don't think that it was ever the rule, or I don't think it was ever a rule for you have a character or a male character that doesn't like himself. Like, you see it every once in a while. Like, that's kind of I'm losing a name again. The dude from Die Hard, John McClane. That's John McClane's thing, and maybe a couple of other characters. But like, if you look at most Arnold Schwarzenegger characters, he's not in a position where he hates himself or he's down on himself. When Arnold Schwarzenegger's on the scene, he's the best that there is. Or when Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's confident, right? Or any of these old school action stars from the same era as this movie. So I don't know if I can agree with that statement. And then finally we have Roger Ebert, my frenemy from the Chicago Sun-Times. He wrote, "An Officer and a Gentleman is the best movie about love that I've seen in a long time. Maybe that's because it's not about love, quote unquote, as a Hollywood concept, but about love as growth, as learning to accept other people for who and what they are." You know what? I think I can rock with that one.
Mm-hmm.
How do you have a relationship with Roger Ebert?
No.
Oh, okay. Because
I mean, I used to watch their show back in the day.
Right.
But I disagreed a lot with them.
Absolutely right. That's what I mean. That's why I call him our frenemy. That's my relationship with Roger Ebert. So I'm always surprised when we have an agreement on a thing.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I feel like he's totally off. I used to watch at the movies all the time, and I've included a lot of his reviews in these critic thoughts segment. So, hold on, let me get a drink of water because my throat's getting dry.
How dare you? Unacceptable.
I'm going to start choking and coughing. I think I can get it. Nope, it still feels bad. Let me get through the final segment. Finally. An Officer and a Gentleman is, of this recording, available on Amazon Prime. That's it for today. Next week is to be determined. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen next week, but I will try to let you know as soon as I find out. Follow us on Twitter or TikTok at Backlink Cinema, or on Facebook or Instagram at Backlink Cinema Podcast. Oh, hold on. I'm losing it. And if you're on Mastodon, at Backlink Cinema, at mstdn.party. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlinkcinema.com. Sarah, I didn't have you do your plugs in the beginning. I'm sorry about that. Do you have?
That's okay.
Let's hear your plugs.
So you can contact us at Two Chicks Talkin Flicks on all platforms. And it's talking, not talking. Just wanna.
Right. Talking. Did I write talking? Oh, you're letting them know it's talking.
Yeah, I'm just letting them know.
TALKIN.
Yeah.
Apostrophe. Or sometimes no apostrophe.
But no. Yeah, we don't have the apostrophe just because it's too hard to do that with.
Right.
So, social.
And two is spelled out. So it's TWO.
Yes.
Chicks Talkin, TILKIN Flicks. And be careful, because there's some there's some similar ones out there. There are a lot of Two Chicks podcasts. There are
Yes.
Two
Yeah.
Chicks in a cinema. There are Two Chicks with guns. There are lots of Two Chicks. But you want Two Chicks Talkin Flicks. I have the links in the show notes. Believe me, it matters. Oh,
It does.
I know you've enjoyed our guest, Sarah. So please listen to her and her co-host April on Two Chicks Talkin Flicks. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.